Scene script. Jesus Christ was never crucified. Brace yourselves, this isn't your typical religious discourse. A bold statement, isn't it? Yet, that's the audacious theory we're about to venture into. You're probably familiar with the story of Jesus Christ, our Savior, his crucifixion and his resurrection. It's a narrative that has shaped our beliefs, our values, and our world for over 2,000 years. But what if we told you there's a theory that challenges this foundational story? A theory that suggests Jesus Christ was not crucified because he had a twin. Yes, you heard it right, a twin. This is known as the twin theory. It's an idea that has been lurking in the shadows of religious discourse, raising eyebrows, sparking intrigue, and demanding a second look at what we've accepted as truth. It's not a theory to be taken lightly, but it's also not one to be dismissed without investigation. After all, it's not every day that a theory dares to challenge one of the most central narratives of Christianity. Now, before you dismiss this as mere conjecture or a fanciful tale spun by conspiracy theorists, let's make something clear. This isn't about undermining faith or dismissing the teachings of Christ. Far from it. This is about exploring an alternative narrative, one that's backed by verses from the Bible and other canonical and non-canonical scriptures. It's about asking questions, seeking answers, and daring to look at familiar stories through a new lens. So, are you ready to dive deep into a theory that might just turn your understanding of religious history on its head? Are you prepared to challenge your beliefs, to question the accepted, and to embark on an intellectual adventure like no other? Remember, the pursuit of truth often leads us down unexpected paths. It requires us to question, to explore, and most importantly, to keep an open mind. So open your minds and journey with me into the realm of the unthinkable. Ever heard of the twin theory? No? Well, you're in for a shocker. Imagine this. Two infants, born in the same manger, under the same star, mirrored images of each other, yet one is destined for a fate that would change the course of history, while the other lives in his shadow. This, dear listeners, is the crux of the twin theory. It's a theory that suggests that Jesus Christ, the central figure of Christianity, had a twin brother who was crucified in his place. A doppelganger, if you will, who bore the sins of the world while Jesus himself escaped the painful ordeal. Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds like the plot of a blockbuster movie or a best-selling novel, right? But what if I told you that there's more to this theory than mere fiction? What if this theory, as outlandish as it may sound, has roots in historical accounts and religious texts? The twin theory is not a new concept. It has been proposed by scholars and religious enthusiasts alike, causing a stir in theological circles. It proposes that Jesus and his twin were identical in appearance, making it possible for the twin to be mistaken for Jesus and crucified in his place. Now, this is where things get interesting. What if the man who was seen post-crucifixion was not Jesus resurrected, but his twin? Could this be the greatest case of mistaken identity in human history? And it's not just about the crucifixion. This theory might also shed light on some of the miracles attributed to Jesus. Could it be that they were not miracles at all, but rather the result of two individuals being perceived as one? The feeding of the 5,000, walking on water, turning water into wine. Could these have been the work of two men, not one? But let's not get carried away. This is, after all, just a theory. It's not meant to be taken as gospel truth, but rather as a different perspective to consider. The purpose is not to undermine the faith or beliefs of millions, but to introduce a new angle, an alternative explanation that challenges the traditional narrative. So let's delve deeper into this theory. Let's examine the evidence, explore the scriptures, and question the established norms. Let's take a journey through time and revisit the life of Jesus Christ, not as the only Son of God, but as a twin. What if everything we've been told was actually a case of mistaken identity? And what if this theory, as radical as it may seem, could provide an answer to some of the most perplexing questions about Jesus Christ and his life? It's a fascinating premise, one that warrants further investigation. So buckle up, folks. The journey to uncover the truth begins now. Let's look at the good book itself. The Bible might have more to say on this than you'd think. We'll start with a seemingly innocuous detail. In the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verse 24, Thomas is referred to as Didymus, a Greek word that translates to twin. Now, doesn't that pique your curiosity? An apostle, a man close to Jesus, bearing a name that suggests a dual nature. Could this be a hint, a veiled reference to the twin theory we're exploring? Moving along to another intriguing passage in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 27, verse 46. Jesus, while hanging on the cross, cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" This statement, uttered in a moment of supposed divine sacrifice, seems out of place. Could it be that the man on the cross was not Jesus, but his twin, feeling abandoned in the face of a fate he did not choose? Let's dive deeper. Consider the resurrection. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, verses 1 through 6, recounts how the women visiting Jesus' tomb found it empty. They were told by two men in dazzling clothes, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen." Could this be a metaphorical reference to Jesus, the living, never having been among the dead, never having been crucified? Then there's the post-resurrection appearance of Jesus. In the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verses 14 through 16, Mary Magdalene fails to recognize Jesus at first, mistaking him for the gardener. It's only when he speaks her name that she realizes who he is. Could this hint at a physical difference, a subtle variation between the man who was crucified and the man who stood before Mary? And finally, consider the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verse 29. Here, Jesus says to Thomas, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Could this be a coded message, hinting that seeing is not always believing, that the crucified man seen by many may not have been the true Jesus? Each of these verses, when viewed through the lens of the twin theory, takes on a new layer of meaning. They hint at a possibility, a potential truth that challenges conventional beliefs about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Now, I must emphasize that these are merely interpretations, possibilities to ponder. They are not definitive proof of the twin theory, but rather stepping stones on a path of inquiry, a journey into the realm of what could be. Intriguing, isn't it? But hold your judgments. We've only just scratched the surface. Now let's delve into the lesser-known non-canonical scriptures. These texts, often overlooked in mainstream Christian theology, may hold the key to unraveling the twin theory. Among these non-canonical scriptures, we find an intriguing collection known as the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha has been a subject of much debate among scholars and theologians alike, due to its controversial nature and the unconventional perspectives it offers on familiar biblical narratives. A standout among the apocryphal books is the Gospel of Thomas. This text, unlike the canonical Gospels, is a compilation of sayings attributed to Jesus, many of which are cryptic and thought-provoking. One such saying, saying 22, reads as follows: "When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, then will you enter the kingdom." Could this be a metaphorical reference to the union of Jesus and his supposed twin? Could it suggest that the physical appearances and perhaps destinies of the two were intertwined? Another apocryphal text, the Acts of Thomas, tells the story of Thomas the Apostle's travels to India. Thomas is often referred to as Didymus in these texts, a Greek word which translates to twin. Intriguingly, in this narrative, Thomas is described as Jesus' lookalike, even leading to instances of mistaken identity. This raises an interesting question. Could the crucifixion story as we know it be a case of mistaken identity? Could it be that it was not Jesus but his twin who was crucified? The Gospel of Philip, another non-canonical text, refers to Thomas as Jesus' twin brother. It reads, "The companion of the Savior is Mary Magdalene, but Christ loved her more than all the disciples and used to kiss her often on her mouth. The rest of the disciples were offended. They said to him, 'Why do you love her more than all of us?' The Savior answered and said to them, 'Why do I not love you like her?'" Some interpret this as a metaphorical representation of spiritual kinship. However, proponents of the twin theory argue that this could be a literal reference to a biological relationship. Of course, these interpretations are not without their challenges. The non-canonical scriptures are diverse and complex, and their interpretation often stirs debate. However, they offer a fascinating alternative perspective on the life and destiny of Jesus Christ. As we explore the twin theory further, it's crucial to remember that these texts, while not included in the canonical Bible, still hold significant historical and cultural value. They offer a broader picture, a different angle, and a new dimension to our understanding of the biblical narrative. The plot thickens, but we're not done yet. Imagine the crucifixion scene again, but this time with a twist. Let's revisit the crucifixion, a pivotal event in Christian faith, but through the lens of the twin theory. This account suggests that the man who was crucified on Golgotha was not Jesus Christ, but his identical twin. Now you might be wondering, where does this twin come into play? The Gospel of Thomas, a non-canonical text, introduces the character of Didymus Judas Thomas, who is described as Jesus' twin. This opens up an entirely new perspective on the crucifixion story. Picture this scenario. The day of the crucifixion, the crowd is in a frenzy. The Roman soldiers are focused on maintaining order, and the disciples are in a state of shock and despair. Amid all this chaos, could it be possible that a switch occurred? Could it be that the man on the cross was not Jesus, but his twin brother, Thomas? Now let's delve a bit deeper. The Bible tells us that Jesus was unrecognizable after his resurrection. Mary Magdalene, one of his closest followers, initially thought he was a gardener. The disciples on the road to Emmaus walked and talked with him, yet they didn't recognize him either. It wasn't until he broke bread with them that their eyes were opened. Could it be that they didn't recognize him because it was his twin, Thomas, who appeared to them? Another point to consider is the sudden disappearance of Thomas after the crucifixion. He reappears only to doubt the resurrection, insisting on seeing the wounds. Could this be a hint that he knew more than he let on? And then there's the matter of the Shroud of Turin, believed by some to be the burial cloth of Jesus, showing the image of a crucified man. Interestingly, recent scientific analysis suggests that the man in the shroud might have had a twin. The twin theory, while controversial, does offer an alternative explanation for these inconsistencies. It challenges the traditional narrative and prompts us to question what we know. It's not about shattering beliefs, but about exploring possibilities. Of course, the twin theory, like any theory, has its limitations and critics. It's based on texts that are not part of the canonical Bible and relies heavily on interpretation and conjecture. But isn't that the case with most historical events? We piece together fragments of information and try to make sense of them. By revisiting the crucifixion through this lens, we're not attempting to rewrite history or undermine faith. We're simply exploring a different perspective, a what-if scenario that encourages us to think outside the box. So let's go back to that crucifixion scene, but with our minds open to the possibility of a twin. It's a twist that throws a new light on an old story. A different perspective can certainly turn the tables, wouldn't you agree? Surely there are counter-arguments, but are they as ironclad as they seem? Let's delve into some of the most commonly voiced objections to the twin theory. First off, many argue that the twin theory is merely a fabrication, a product of creative imaginations with no historical or scriptural basis. However, this argument falls short when we consider the Gospel of Thomas, an early Christian non-canonical sayings gospel that many scholars believe provides insight into the oral gospel traditions. It includes a direct reference to Thomas as Jesus' twin, hence the name. So while it may sit outside the Bible, that doesn't mean it's devoid of historical or theological value. The second argument revolves around the notion of the resurrection. Critics contend, if Jesus had a twin, wouldn't his followers have recognized the difference? Here's where we need to be critical. The Gospels themselves bear witness to the fact that post-resurrection, Jesus wasn't immediately recognized. In the Gospel of Luke, for instance, the disciples on the road to Emmaus didn't recognize Jesus until he broke bread with them. Could this be because it was his twin they were seeing? Now, for the third argument, why doesn't the Bible mention Jesus having a twin? Well, let's not forget that the Bible as we know it was compiled hundreds of years after Christ's death. It's entirely plausible that certain texts, including those referring to Jesus' twin, were deliberately excluded to maintain a particular narrative. This argument, then, is less about the absence of a twin in the canonical scriptures and more about the selective process of canonization itself. The fourth counter-argument we'll address is the claim that the twin theory undermines Jesus' sacrifice for humanity's sins. But does it really? If we accept the twin theory, we are not denying the crucifixion, we're merely questioning who was crucified. The message of love, selflessness, and sacrifice still holds. And finally, the miracles argument. Some say, If Jesus had a twin, could his twin also perform miracles? Well, remember, in the context of the twin theory, the miracles aren't the point. The point is the mistaken identity at the crucifixion. Whether or not the twin could perform miracles is irrelevant to the theory's premise. So, after examining these counter-arguments, we find that they aren't as concrete as they first appear. Each one, when subjected to critical scrutiny, reveals its own set of holes. And that's crucial to remember. Questioning is not about disrespect or disbelief. It's about seeking a deeper understanding, about not accepting everything at face value. So, are we still sure about the story we've been told? Let's consider what this theory could mean for Christianity as we know it. Imagine a world where the twin theory is widely accepted. Christianity, a faith founded on the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, would face a seismic shift in its understanding. The crucifixion, long held as the pivotal event in Christian theology, would be seen in a new light. The resurrection, the cornerstone of Christian faith, would need to be re-evaluated. What would this mean for the doctrine of salvation? If Jesus didn't die on the cross, then the concept of salvation through his sacrifice would need to be critically examined. The entire narrative of sin, redemption, and salvation through Christ's sacrifice would demand a fresh perspective. Would this undermine the teachings of Jesus? Not necessarily. Jesus' teachings about love, compassion, and forgiveness remain as relevant as ever. His life and message still offer a moral compass to millions around the world. But what about the Bible? The twin theory would require a reinterpretation of the biblical accounts of the crucifixion and resurrection. This isn't to say that the Bible would be rendered irrelevant. Instead, it would need to be read and understood in light of this new theory. The twin theory also opens up a Pandora's box of questions. If Jesus wasn't crucified, what happened to him? How did his twin brother factor into the narrative, and what does this mean for the concept of the divine nature of Jesus? But here's the thing, theories like these don't necessarily invalidate faith. They challenge it, yes, they make us question and reevaluate our beliefs. And that's not a bad thing. Faith that is untested is faith that is unproven. In the end, the twin theory, like any theory, is a lens through which we view the world. It's not about proving or disproving religion. It's about seeking truth, questioning the status quo, and striving for a deeper understanding of our beliefs. And there we have it, a theory that may just make us rethink everything we thought we knew. We've journeyed through uncharted territories today. We've dared to question long-held beliefs, to probe beneath the surface of traditional narratives. We've delved into the depths of the Bible and even non-canonical scriptures to reveal a theory so bold it could shake the very foundations of Christianity, the twin theory. This theory posits Jesus Christ had a twin, a simple idea with profound implications. It means the man we know as Jesus Christ may not have been crucified, altering our understanding of sacrifice and salvation. This exploration is not a denial of faith, but a call to deeper, more critical thinking. Whether you choose to accept or reject this theory, the aim here is to provoke thought, stir debate, and encourage exploration of different perspectives. Remember, the truth is often stranger than fiction. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring,